In France, fish consumption has more than doubled over the last 50 years. It has now reached 37 pounds per year per capita. That's more than beef or chicken. To meet the demand, new fish have appeared today, and today's fish shops hardly resemble those of the past.
Hello, young man.
Hello.
What would you like?
I'd like 2 salmon fillets, please.
Okay. Okay.
In this Parisian fish shop, the salmon is Scottish, the bass is Greek, and apart from the trout, not a French fish to be seen. In these images, which he filmed, he claims that these men are pouring a powerful pesticide into these waters, one known to have neurotoxic effects. They must protect themselves with work suits and gas masks from chemicals to treat salmon attacked by pests and diseases which abound in these farms.
What kind of elements is this?
This considers all the toxins been sprayed for the fish to delysing, and it contains the fish shit itself. And you will see the sea bottom is completely destroyed, you know. And that's a gas factory, you know. It bubbles up with all kind of methane, and some of these pesticides they're using is the same that was used during the First World War to gas people. They have
Salmon also suffer less visible but equally disturbing transformations.
See, this is a much smaller tail. It has bigger tails with more sharp corners. And the shell is not covering the gills, you know? That's very normal.
What we find inside the fish is even worse.
Typical. This is no. What the hell? See this? This is a fresh salmon, you see? Yeah. How it's breaking, you see? This is no good fish, you know? This you should be able to tug back and forth. It shouldn't break like this, you know. A wild salmon contains 5 to 7% fat. This contains between 14.5% and 34% fat, you understand? And since the toxic is always following the fat, you know, this is the most toxic food you have in the world. This one is.
Since these fish have more fat, the flesh of farmed fish absorb higher levels of chemical residues. And the observations of Kurt Odegalv have now been confirmed by the studies of a French researcher. Jérôme Rouzan works for the University of Bergen in Norway. He measured the concentration of toxic chemicals present in various food products. And the results that he obtained are enlightening.
The different colors represent different pollutants. Here you have different food products. Hamburger, whole milk, eggs, apples, potatoes, cod, and farmed salmon.
That's incredible. We can see from the chart that the farmed fish has much higher levels than the other products.
Compared to other products, we can see very clearly that farmed salmon contains much more pollutants.
Becoming resistant to all the treatments, it forces the farmers to use pesticides, which are more and more potent. These farming conditions produce frightening consequences in the fish, like in these cod, deformed by genetic mutations.
This is an escaped cod from a fish farm, from a cod farm. Nearly 50% of the cod is born like this. They can never close their mouth. This is a genetic damage. It takes 8 generations in the sea to get this away. You understand? Yeah. And female cod of this type is known to get pregnant with wild male cod. See the beautiful faces, you know? You don't eat things like this. But if you chop the head off, you wouldn't see it, you know?
Relatively unknown until 10 years ago, today, panga is one of the 10 most consumed fish in France. It can be found in fish shops and also in most supermarkets as frozen fillets. But thanks to its low price, panga has become especially prevalent in the mass catering business, to the point of becoming one of the most consumed fishes in school lunches. And to treat their panga sickened by pollution, farmers pour industrial quantities of drugs into the ponds. On this farm, in fact, the fish have caught several diseases.
So this is a big farm, huh?
Yes.
Patrick Kestemont is a researcher at the University of Namur in Belgium. He came to help this farmer to treat his sick panga.
They do not have too many problems with diseases.
On the body.
Oh, yes, to their bodies. And there is also bleeding. Bleeding in the fin areas.
Yes.
Bleeding.
Okay, bleeding.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, he faced with the problem with the
And they also get a liver disease.
in the liver.
Yes.
Yeah.
Does he have some stages?
Patrick Kestemont is going to discover that to treat the fish, farmers use dangerous doses of drugs.
Plenty of chemical here. Okay.
Yes, yes, here you can see the antibiotics.
In this local pharmacy, there are hundreds of boxes of antibiotics of all kinds. Heavily used on the farms, they cause a chain reaction.
Yes.
Okay.
The problem is that there are always residues. They're found in the environment, and eventually the bacteria becomes resistant to these antibiotics.
Ces antibiotiques.
Regularly administered to the fish, these antibiotics heighten the diseases they are supposed to fight, forcing the producers to raise the dosages. A vicious circle because today the farmer can't avoid it.
If the fish consume the antibiotics, they become absorbed into its tissues, and it will be released as a form of residue via feces, via excretions, and then these antibiotic residues will be found elsewhere, in the channels, to the point where they can also spread to other farms, because these waters are also used by other fish farmers.
The more fatty the fish, the more the pollutants are absorbed into the flesh. Some, such as pesticides or PCBs, are never eliminated and are called persistent organic pollutants. Moving up the food chain, they concentrate more and more in the fatty tissues. At the end of the chain, a kilo of tuna or salmon is much more toxic than a kilo of small fish. Consequently, some fatty fish from the Baltic have become unfit for consumption. So they are harder to find on the consumer's plate. So they find themselves in heavy demand in the market for making dry pellet fish feed. And that's where the toxicity builds up. Back to Tiburon in the dry pellet feed plant. To process the fatty fish, Finn Nielsen cooks them in these large ovens. At the end of the line, he obtains two very different products. Firstly, protein powder, and secondly, fish oil. This is the story of one of the best-kept secrets of the food processing industry. At first glance, atoxaquene has no place in a food factory. The product was registered in 1959 by Monsanto, the giant U.S. chemical company, in the category of pesticides. It was used to treat rubber, but also fruits and vegetables. Its use is strictly regulated and limited. What is it doing in fish feed? The answer can be found in Switzerland, in Geneva, in this anti-fraud laboratory. 2 years ago, Patrick Eder and Didier Ortelli were surprised to find atoxicine in the flesh of farmed fish in extremely high levels, well above the 50 micrograms per kilogram permitted in foodstuffs.
The reference value is 50, so we're looking at this level. And we see that in our fish, the measurements are 10 to 20 times more than this standard because concentrations of between 500 and 800 or nearly 1,000 micrograms per kilogram have been found.
So they're extremely higher than the norm.
They're a lot higher than the norm. We don't see that in wild fish. This is logical since they're not fed fish meal. On the other hand, all the fish coming from the aquaculture industry are contaminated with ethoxyquine.
Before them, nobody had ever thought to look for atoxicine in fish, and for good reason. The product is supposed to protect fruits and vegetables, but meal manufacturers have found another use for it. It's of this pulp machine in action, crushing the waste and extracting this shapeless mash and not very appetizing substance, which is called the pulp. Once washed, here is what the finished product looks like. This one was made from the remains of a fatty fish, trout. What can that pulp be used for example?
It's usually used in prepared meals, but also in a lot of pet foods.
In what?
For feeding dogs and cats.
Hello, Mr. Emmerich, head of the Social Protection Department. Hello, welcome.
Jean-Michel Emmerich came to inspect the stocks of this famous brand food processing company, and this cod and potato pie, he wants to check its composition.
So this is the list of ingredients. You have water, cod, 23%, made up exclusively of cod and salt. So the professional's job is to determine if there is indeed 23% of the pure product in this meal.
Pure product, in a manner of speaking. When a prepared meal is labeled, for example, made with cod, without adding the words fish fillet, it is usually made with pulp.